Alright guys, finally a video after a long time. I've been really busy with the children, so haven't had time to make videos, and there hasn't been much going on with this car yet. So there was nothing to make a video about rather than just drag racing people on that night. And those videos you've already seen. So today let's talk about TCU maps, not ECU, TCU, which is transmission control unit. So most modern cars with automatic gearboxes have a very complicated relationship between the engine control unit and the transmission control unit. So basically, in a manual car, you press the accelerator and you're in whichever gear you're in, and depending on the ECU's ability to control torque, either you get the full torque available to you at that RPM, or it slowly builds up to ensure that you don't have any wheel spin and all. In a modern car like this, which has a DSG gearbox, or even the BMW with the ZF automatics, the ECU and the transmission control unit, both depending on a lot of inputs from wheel speed, steering angle, and so on and so forth, they determine how much torque to give you. Doesn't matter whether your foot is fully planted on the accelerator or half planted, or just touching it. You're not getting access directly to the full torque of the engine. The ECU and the TCU together are talking to each other, talking to your ESP unit, talking to your wheel speed sensor, and then determining how much of the available torque of the engine do you deserve to get. Now, if you're a grandmother driving your children or grandchildren to school, it helps. But for us who are enthusiasts, this interpretation of what I want the car to do versus what the ECU feels the car should be doing is what kills the fun of driving cars. Most modern cars have this at some level or the other. Volkswagen, thanks to its wanting to differentiate its product from Audi and Skoda and all the other groups, all the Volkswagen groups, they basically put in different levels of electronic nannies to control torque. And one of the electronic nannies which control torque is sitting in your transmission control unit. Now, you remember I had done the Stage 2 Plus TCU map from TVS Engineering, which I thought was a very, very good map. It really opened up the car. It automatically freed up about, how much is it, 25 horsepower on the car, and a lot of torque, because the car went from 242 horsepower to 276, I think. 276 to 72 horsepower, and based on that, just because the TCU torque limiters were gone. Now, I recently drove a friend's car who had a Stage 3 TCU tune, and my god, I was blown away. That tune was instant. Like in the Stage 2 and 2 Plus tune, there's a bit of a lag because there's still some interpretation going on between you pressing the accelerator versus the car actually giving you the torque that the car thinks it demands. In the Stage 3 map, that interpretation is gone. You're fully in control of your destiny in this car. You press the accelerator, it gives you all the torque. If it's too much torque, you will have wheel spin. Or if it's too much torque in a corner, you will spin out. So, given those caveats, and given the fact that I know how to drive, hopefully I know how to drive cars, I got the Stage 3 map, and my god, it's a night and day difference between the Stage 2 map and 2 Plus map and the Stage 3 map. I mean, the easiest way to put it, the difference between Stage 2 and 2 Plus and Stage 3 is, one is a gentleman's map. The car is smooth, the car is not jerky, the car gives you enough power to have fun with while keeping it civil. Whereas the Stage 3 map is all you can eat wild buffet and do whatever the hell you want. Basically, the car becomes absolute animal. Like, for example, right now I'm in second gear. Holy shit. Yeah. So that wouldn't happen. Yeah. So back to it here. So that, what you just saw, would not happen in the previous gearbox map. In which the gearbox, I would press the accelerator, the gearbox would talk to the ECU, they'd both decide how much torque I deserve, and then they'll give it to me. Now the Stage 2 map that raises the torque limit a little bit more, but it's still there are limiters on what gear, how much torque, how much throttle is available to the user. Stage 3 there is nothing like that. We have removed all torque limiters on this car on the Gearbox Map. The ECU still does some torque limiting, minor, very minor, but that is only kicked in if the ESP is on. With the ESP off, unless you do something drastically stupid, you got full torque all the time. Now what does that mean in terms of experience? Means that at, well, let's say third gear 2000 RPM I get full torque, versus whereas in earlier the car would limit torque. Okay, second gear 3000 RPM full torque. Yeah, that was not the case earlier. The car was a little laggy. And the most interesting part that you'll notice, I don't know if you have ever driven one of these Octavia RS cars, that you will find that it's increasingly difficult to put power down out of a corner in this car. Like right now, I'll go into a corner, I'll brake, and then I accelerate out of a corner. The car has a little bit of a lag. It used to have a little bit of a lag. And no matter how hard or how much I put the throttle in, even with 100% throttle, there was something holding the car's torque back, and that was the TCU limits. So I'm guessing that there was some limitation, some program in the TCU along with the ESP, which would decide at, let's say, 30-degree steering angle, I'll give you only 60% of the available torque. Now that is not there. Now any gear, any RPM, if I want torque, it's there. The car is letting me do what I want to do and how I want to do it, and not behaving like a headmaster in a school. And it feels wonderful. It is really, really something. So that's about your torque limiters. The other thing that the Stage 3 map is very good at doing, it actually removes a little bit of the refined and smoothness of the Stage 2 Plus map, and I asked for it. They don't remove it by default, but I asked them to make the shifts as fast as possible and the clutch cramping pressure as strong as possible. So as a result, the shifts now are instant. Comfort is thrown out of the equation. That doesn't mean it's not comfortable. I mean, I've been driving in D since I got in the car, and it's perfectly fine. Even in S mode, it's perfectly fine. But if you gun it, if you put the pedal to the metal, then the gear shifts are crisp and almost violent. You're like, every time the gear shift, you feel like something hitting you from the back and making you move forward, which is actually a very good thing. It's a very nice feeling to have in a car you're driving hard. So that's the gear shifting and the clutch pressure. The third thing is, it in manual mode, it gives me absolute instant shifts. I mean, you touch the gearbox, touch the pedals, and it's completely instant. I mean, I think the shifts are at least 30 to 40% faster than they were in the Stage 2 Plus map, which is saying quite a bit, which is really saying quite a bit. And because there is no torque limiter in the lower RPM band, your throttle response has gone up significantly. The easiest difference you notice, and this is something I noticed in my friend's car when I drove it, is that the moment you put the car into D, the car is so much more eager to go, because the transmission is not telling the engine to cut the torque to allow the car to take off smoothly. Rather than it's giving you the full torque, do with it as you please. So yeah, so from a standstill, if you drive a Stage 2 car and a Stage 2 or 2 Plus car and a Stage 3 car, the biggest difference you will notice instantly is how much more responsive your accelerator pedal is. And this has nothing to do with the ECU map, it's all got to do with how much torque limit the ECU asks for or the TCU asks for in the lower gears. So that's a huge relief. I mean, I'll add a launch control video. I'm still not comfortable launching this car because right now, because there's no torque limiter, launch control is extremely violent and it's scary almost. And I usually do it with the ESC in sport, so I can get some kind of traction control management to limit the first gear wheel spin. Second gear, the limited slip differential just hooks up the car and just rockets forward. So as long as I can manage first gear wheel spin in this car, my god, this thing is an absolute rocket. So yeah, that's the initial thoughts about the TCU map stage 3. Now people have asked a lot of questions about various tuners giving different TCU maps. There are TCU maps from APR, there are TCU maps from Revo. Nearly every tuner worth their salt is making some flavor of the TCU map for the cars that they tune ECUs for. Now what's the difference between those maps and the TVS map? Honestly, I felt that the TVS map was a lot more intelligent. It was a lot more direct, it was a lot more precise, and definitely a lot more quicker to respond than the other tuners' maps. Now that doesn't mean the other tuners' maps aren't good. You may like them for your own use case, but for my use case, where I want the car to be as sharp as possible and as violent as possible, I don't think we could have gotten a better map than this. For me, TVS engineering is like what APR is to ECU, TVS is to TCU. Their TCU maps are incredibly good, and they are the best in the industry, no doubt about it. So if somebody tells me that APR is better, I'll say no. If somebody tells me Revo is better, I'll say no. And I'm saying this with experience, rather than just based on just some feelings and all. So yeah, that's why TVS always, that's why APR, ECU always. Anything, if any of these tuners has a tune available for your car, go for it. If not, go for the other tuners. There's nothing wrong in other tuners as well, but their maps, be it for ECU or TCU, are not as sophisticated or not as thoroughly tested as the APR maps or the TVS maps. So that's your call completely. Alright guys, hope you had fun. Bye.